Good morning world, it is Monday and day 13 of Journey to Freelance Designer. Yesterday I got my very first question. Okay, so Kieran Babu writes, "Hi friend, I really like your YouTube channel, you're doing a great job, I'm doing master painting studying, but I'm getting so many doubts about the value scale. Traditional painters are following 9 value scales, but this Photoshop has 10 value scales. What is Jamie Jones doing? Is he doing 10 values or 9 values? But like traditional people like John Howard Sanden, Juliette Artistides, Denman Ross, the Munsell's value scale is 11, Loomis value scale is 8, Jamie Jones, Craig Mullins, what's happening? What's happening? Values!" I guess I totally understand when there's so many good painters in the world and many of them are saying different things in regards to values. 9 scales, 10 scales, 8 scales, 11 scales.
Vegeta, what does the scouter say about his power level?
But the thing is, I think it boils down to a few simple ideas. Here, let me explain. Okay, so what is value anyway? Well, in the world of art, value refers to how dark or light each individual color is. Essentially, it means to understand the image in monochrome, like this. So why do artists do this? Well, because we can understand images in black or white, it becomes one of the strongest reads to our human senses. If an image doesn't make sense in black and white, there's little chance it's going to make sense in color. I kind of think of black and white being the foundation to any color image. As I said, if it doesn't make sense in monochrome, it's not going to make sense in color. So what do you mean when you talk about value scales? Well, essentially, value goes from black to white. And however many ways you separate this black and white separation is the value scale that I refer to. So in the case of Denman Ross, he uses 9 value scales. 1 is white, 9 is black. In case of Munsell, he uses 9 value scales. 1 is black, 9 is white. Juliette Artistides is the same. 1 white, 9 black. Photoshop, however, goes numerically. Here I have a plugin called Colorist, and then this is the value slider. It goes from 0 to 100. So many people will take these in gaps of 10. So 0 would be full black, then 10 would be 10% to 30%, etc., all the way to 100%. And so that would be 10 steps in the value scale. So I think this idea of how many value jumps there are is what's confusing Kieran. But the answer to this question isn't how many value scales everyone's using. I think when everyone tries explaining the value scales, they're trying to actually group them. So for example, in Juliette Artistides, her separation is quite obvious. 6 and lower is actually in the darks, and 5 and 1 is in the brights. In this case, it's actually more about the value separation than about how many numbers there are. And I think this continues on to all the other painters. So John Howard Sanden has this painting. And let's look at it in value. Yes, it makes sense. And if you just bring it down to 4 values, here I turn on a posterize filter, and this brings it down to 4 values, the image still makes sense. If we look at some of Juliette's work, her image still makes sense in 4 values. If we look at Denman Ross's work, even his like pencil sketch makes sense in 4 values. And it's actually not about how many values he's used, it's all about the value grouping. In fact, this idea is many times reduced to 2 values. If you turn on the threshold filter, you can kind of find the perfect match where 2 values is all you need to show the image. So this is Denman Ross. Let's look at Juliette. Oh, it's around here. Look, even in 2 values, you can see the shoulder, the rib cage, the arm, and the face. In the case of John Howard, sure, 2 values is all you need, and the image still reads. In fact, with threshold, I think it's nice to see a nice smooth transition going from light to dark when you move the slider, but I might just be talking out of my ass here. So those were the traditional painters. What is Craig Mullins and Jamie Jones doing? Well, it's still all about the value grouping. Look, I even highlight it. Okay, so this on the left is one big value group. And this on the right is another big value group. And so these two big shapes actually frame this character here. And in the background is all white. If we use the cutout filter on this image, it will simplify the values and colors. And even with 4 colors in this image, Jamie Jones's painting still reads these two big shapes framing this one figure. In fact, this is a classic composition that's in a book called Framed Ink. Let me find it. Here we go. So 2 big shapes framing the character. And then these 2 big shapes can be anything. In this case, it's a hand and a gun and a building that still frame the character, but they act as the same framing device. 2 big shapes, small character. 2 big shapes, small character. 2 big shapes, small character. So now let's have a quick look at Craig Mullins. In Craig Mullins, he has this big open cathedral, this light ground, and these darker figures. If we convert it to black and white, you can see how these figures are darker and the background's brighter, and then the floor is almost acting as a middle ground. If we reduce it with posterize to 4 values, you can see like this. You can see the top part is light, the bottom part is mid, and the foreground is dark. But yet all the figures are sticking out because their values are slightly darker than the background. See, it's all slightly darker than the background, which is making the images pop, and they're all grouped, which is how they connect, which simplifies the image and makes it read nicer. Yo, so I hope that made sense. It's less about how many value scales there are, and it's more about the value grouping that they do. All these great artists, it's almost like the value scales, I'm not going to say they're irrelevant, but the focus is on how they are being simplified and put together. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed this video. If you have any more questions, please have them in the comments below. I'd rather in the comments rather than on Facebook, to be honest. I make a video every day. If you'd like to subscribe, please hit the subscribe button over here. And I'm going to have a video here that is best recommended for viewer. See you tomorrow, guys. Peace.